I met a fellow when I worked at the hospital. He was a respiratory therapist, and we talked a lot about spiritual things. He told me that he really wanted to be a priest, but always did, but he never felt like he could really qualify for it because he loved women and drink too much to be a priest. And at least he was honest with himself. But he was still a very spiritual man, and he could do healing. He had a gift of healing for others. But he told me a story one day about a man that I've never heard before. He says that everybody has a hole in them. And they go through life trying to fill that hole up with alcohol, maybe, drugs, gambling, women, whatever, men. But nothing fits in that hole. No matter what they try to fit in that hole, won't fit. The only thing that'll fit in that hole is love. And when they actually understand that and do bring love into that hole, then they're whole. They live in peace, and they live in calm prosperity the rest of their lives. That's one way of explaining it. I always thought that that's a self-image, product of self-image. When we come into this world, we're afraid of nothing. You have to watch little babies all the time because they'll get into anything. They don't care what it is. They'll try anything. They'll do anything. But as they grow older, they're taught to fear this and fear that and don't do these things because they could be hurt or harmed. They're built into them to worry about their mortality. And of course some of that's very good. You wouldn't want your kid running out in the street doing stuff like that. A lot of the fears we teach them are not good fears. And the one that's the worst fear of the world is fear of God. That's the absolute worst fear that you can teach your child. That's just about as bad as teaching them that Santa Claus is a wicked witch. And it's just not true. I get criticized a lot for talking about there is no hell. And there isn't. Never has been. Never has been any demons, devils running around. Did you know that the Church of Satan in New York, the first thing their congregation will tell you is that Satan is not real. That's the first thing they'll tell you. What they really worship is materialism. That's what they worship. And yet people scare themselves over and over and over again with all the things that bad that could happen to them. See, if you really understand, if you got self-love, and you know God loves you, and He does. You may not know that yet, but He does, 100%. Then you know that nothing can ever hurt you. No, you can lose your body. I mean, the world can end. So what? The world ends, you're just going back to heaven from where you came from. If somebody blows up your town, the same thing. So why should we have this terrible fear all the time? This might happen, that might happen, something else might happen. It's a little bit like Chicken Little. Sky is falling. All the time the sky is falling. How many times have I heard people say that on this date the world will end, or there'll be some great catastrophe? They said that about the year 2000, remember? Yeah. I have a relative that has survival material in her garage left over from that time, which she didn't need. I have a neighbor that has a generator that he doesn't need. But sometimes that fear is just totally uncalled for here. We really have nothing to fear. If we had love for ourselves, then we would have love for everyone else. I was just going through some near-death experiences, and people tell me, well, you know, people when they have a near-death experience, they experience hell, so hell must be real. But if you look at them real close, you'll find they're a lot like other near-death experiences. They're never exactly the same. Near-death experiences are unique to its person who has one. I just got through reading a near-death experience from a person who said that he had a heart attack and died, and when he died, he went to a place that was all white. Totally white. There was not a ripple of color anywhere in that place. And he knew he wasn't in heaven. And it brought a great fear to him. In fact, he said he was just terrorized. And then in a little bit, he found himself in the hospital back in his bed. And he thinks that he went to hell. Another one might go to a place of total darkness. Instead of white, it'll be black. I've read others where they go to a place of grayness, which everything is faded out gray. Some people say they go to a place that is where there's fire, brimstone around them. And they feel very panicked and very hot. Some people see demons that seems to be pulling at them and stuff, or maybe even Satan. But when they call out, when they say, "Help me," that all goes away, and they are in the light. They're in a light of love. The reason those people experience those places, I believe, is because they have so much fear. They don't think that they're worthy of a good place to go, of heaven. So they go there, and then when they get there, they cry out, and somebody comes and takes them out of there. Nobody stays in that type of hell forever. No, because that's kind of a place that your mind makes up through the fear that you hold. If everybody could get rid of their fear, this world would be just exactly like heaven is. Because there wouldn't be anything to be afraid of. You wouldn't be afraid of other people and other countries, and they wouldn't be afraid of you. There would be no borders. We could just walk across anywhere we wanted to go because nobody had any fear of one another. So the enemy is fear. And the answer to that fear is love. So you can help to bring love into yourself by showing love to other people. That's one way to do it. You don't have to do real big things. I mean, you can just open the door for a person, smile at a person, pick up something a person dropped. That's all acts of fear, acts of acts of love, acts of affection. You can show that to everybody. And when somebody says a harsh word to you, you can return a soft word to them. You can do that. And by practicing that, you will bring love into your system. And the more love you have, the less fear. Now, another way to bring love into yourself is to do affirmations. Now, in both of my books, I have lists of affirmations that I think are very good that hundreds of people have used, and they have benefited from them. But you don't have to buy my book. There's thousands of good affirmations across the website. You got to start putting into your mind those things that are positive and full of love. And you've got to strain out and keep away from those things that are negative and fearful. That's the way you do it. It's just like you don't put garbage in your computer and expect something better than garbage out of it. Same way with you. You don't watch shows where people are killed and murdered and all kinds of horror hacked up movies and stuff like that and expect to feel better about life and yourself. You just can't do it. Don't tell me that those movies don't have an effect on you, because I know they do. Anybody with any common sense knows that too. So don't breed fear in your life. Breed love. Stay away from those things. Get into affirmations, and I guarantee you that you will begin to feel better if you do it. And it's not a short-term thing. You have to do it every day, depending on how much fear that you've been. And if you go to a church that all the time talking about hellfire and brimstone and how you're going to go to hell, then don't go to that church. There's a lot of other churches that don't teach that anymore, because they've grown up. They're wiser. They understand more about the love-fear relationship. So I wish you all the love that life can ever bring you. And I want you to know that God loves you, that you are His child, and He will never stop loving you, no matter what you do, or what you say, or how you act. His love is unconditional. And you should get to know Him. When you get to know Him, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Thank you.